My name is Tim Ross. I'm president of Mudlick Mail. So today we're going to talk about diagnosing your shop for the future, presented by Greg Sands. This is something that we talk about each and every year. It's important, and Greg, for his personal shops as well as the shops around the country, to make sure that you guys get started off on the right foot. Greg, for a lot of you guys know Greg, but if you don't, here's a nice little picture of him. He's been an entrepreneur for over 20 years. He's owned and operated over 35 auto repair stores. His current shops he owns spans across 5 states. He's annual sales in excess of $50 million. Lifetime, which I thought is the most impressive stat, is he's sold over $1 billion, that's right, $1 billion in auto repair. So if you're asking about how you should sell auto repair, this is the guy to talk about. And then, of course, the better looking guy of the group is myself. Tim Ross. I'm the president of Mudlick Mail. Again, for those of you who don't know, we've been around for almost 9 years now. Work with thousands of automotive shops around the country, both in U.S. and Canada. We'll do about 120 million direct mail pieces or postcards a year. Good part that I like to mention to people, 75% of my business is repeat customers. And I think a lot of that's got to do with the fact that we really engage with our customers. We're there to make you guys money. This webinar is one of those pieces of our puzzle where we can work with you guys in the trenches on how you can improve your business. Our growth has been pretty extraordinary at 68% year over year, and we're real excited that we have a Google review at 4.9. So a lot of the magazines you see down there are magazines that you guys have probably heard about us before and read some articles that Greg or I had written, so we're real excited to get started. What I'd like to do is introduce Greg Sands. Greg, thank you very much for attending today.
Yeah, Tim, I'm glad to be here. It seems like a year flies by pretty quickly. And so this is always the busy time of the year for me to get ready for the new year.
Well, and guys, this is something that Greg and I have done pretty much annually for the last several years. It's important for Greg to help you guys not only finish the year off strong, but start the year off with a bang. For those of you, just a quick little housekeeping before we jump into this. We've got a lot of people online, so everybody is in listen-only mode. If you could mute your phones rather than put us on hold if you choose to do so. The questions, if you have questions or some things that pop up, you can type in the bottom right-hand corner. You'll see a little box. You guys can type your questions in and send to you. We'll get to as many as we can. We've only got about 11 slides, 9 or 10 slides here we're going to go through. And at the very end, we'll certainly open it up for some questions if we have some time. So without further ado, guys, we're going to jump in. Greg, there's a lot of things changing in the industry. I know you had a keynote speech recently over at Ratchet Rents in Chicago, and man, you were asked all kinds of information about what's going on in our industry. So I think it's kind of a good idea. Let's start the conversation off on what are you hearing out there? What's going on in the industry?
Well, you know, there's no surprise. I mean, there may be some surprises. I mean, anybody that reads the internet or watches the news knows that there's been record new car sales. A lot of our customers, a lot of our shops out there survived all the new car sales and actually thrived through that process. There's a lot of consolidation. There's never been a better time. If you wanted to sell your business, there are just huge companies out there right now that are looking to consolidate. What's really driving that consolidation is franchising. There's a number of big companies out there, franchisors, who need locations to be able to grow their business. They don't have the time to build stores, and so they're going in and they're buying chains. I sold a chain a couple years ago to Meineke. They were fantastic to work with, but there's a lot of companies out there right now just looking to do acquisitions. So there's never been higher multiples or higher amounts being paid for automotive shops, which is good if you're wanting to retire. It's bad if you're wanting to grow. You know, it's very hard to compete against those guys, but we're seeing a lot of the consolidation. You know, I think the next slide that you have is going to be interesting, but, you know, electric and autonomous cars, you hear that. It's going to impact our industry somewhat. I do think that our industry is making some rapid changes where, you know, for a long time, automotive shops, if you look up in AAA, you can look up data, and you know, automotive shops have been stagnant. The average shop between 450,000 and 500,000 a year, and that's really not enough volume to make to make a living. And so I think we're going to see a number of automotive shops go out of business. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, we've seen it with dealerships. Dealerships have declined, almost cut in half in the last 20 years. We haven't seen that on the repair side. We've seen a lot of people coming in. So as there's consolidation, you also have a lot of specialized businesses. You know, the people do only oil changes now have had to expand into full service. You have people in the transmission business that only do transmissions, and now they're trying to do full service. So you see muffler companies that's doing full service. So as we see consolidation, at the same time you're seeing more specialized, tune-up places, tire places, all going into the auto repair business, which is going to further put pressure on sales and probably be the thing that knocks out a lot of shops over the next few years. The good news is the good shops, the ones that have a concept, that know how to market, that know how to hire, those are the ones that are going to thrive. I mean, it has never been a better time to be in the business, but you do have to run a business. You can't just, be an absentee owner, like a lot of people out there say. It's really the worst advice you could get. This is not the time to be absentee. This is the time to be in your business, to be on your game, to be working improvements. And if you're not, you're probably the guy going out of business.
Well, I thought one of the great slides you showed at Ratchet and Wrench is this next slide that really kind of talks about the evolution of the cars and all. Talk a little bit about this. This was a real important slide for you. It kind of hammers home about the evolution of the car and auto repair.
Well, I got this slide. It kind of reminds me of when I got into the business. I met with an oil executive, and at the time, it was before convenience stores, for a large part. And I remember how crazy it was to hear an oil executive say, "Hey, we're getting out of the auto repair business. We're going into the convenience store business." Now, that sounded crazy at the time because they had a lot of the business, but they said, Greg, all of our complaints come from the auto repair side. Well, today you have a similar problem. You have just way too many shops out there and not enough good technicians. Well, technology is going after that. They're saying, you know what, we can't train enough technicians, but we can make cars better. We can make them simpler. And so this is just something that is a reality that we've seen. I think Germany announced that by the year 2030 they will not build a combustion engine car. They will not allow it. That's craziness. So, I don't like looking at this slide, but it tells me, wow, you know what, there's a reason why. Now, I don't believe Tesla is necessarily going to be the leader. A lot of times it's not the one that started it. If you look at the internet and you go, well, AOL, remember, you got mail. Well, they're not the leaders today. Tesla started something that now people can piggyback off of that. I don't like it, but it's a fact of life, and then think this is going to further put pressure, not today, not next year, but over the next 10 years, looking out. This is just something that we are going to be faced with. There's still going to be 360 million combustion engines on the road, so I'm not stressed out about that, but I do know that we have to be on our game so that we can get a large number of these type cars, and we want to somehow play a role in these electric cars. If there's an opportunity, that's where it's at.
Well, this helps us go right into kind of why we want to stay focused on this webinar about growth mode. So you got to talk a little bit about where the future is going, what it looks like, and that just reinforces the importance of you guys to stay in growth mode. And what does growth mode mean? Some of this stuff is going to be very repetitive for you guys, but it's just important that we just really understand how are you going to be different in an environment where it is going to rapidly change. As Greg, you mentioned, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to do very, very well. Here are some of the points I know that you kind of feel are important to be one of those shops to do really, really well.
Yeah, I think, as we're ending 2016, the thing I always ask myself is, what am I going to do differently in 2017 that's going to help my sales go up? So I like a year ago, we increased our warranty. The year before, we looked at maybe adding a technician at some of our stores where we thought we could really build the car count. So, I would challenge everyone on this call, what are you going to do differently? What are things that's going to happen? And think of it like this. If you have, when you started your business, whether you took it over from, your parents or you started it, think back to when you started your business and how it grew. Typically what happens is, an owner starts, he's real excited, a coffee's warm, he's opening the door for customers, and sales go up. And as sales go up, the owner goes, hey, I'm going to add a customer shuttle. So he adds a customer shuttle, sales go up more. Hey, I'm going to add another technician, sales go up. Hey, I think I'm going to give a longer warranty, sales go up. I'm going to improve my preventive maintenance process, or I'm going to have a website, I'm going to do SEO, and sales keep going up until there's a day where the owner starts saying, we've really worked hard, man. We're going to have to, kind of pull back a little bit. Mm-hmm. If you're an owner and looking to pull back in 2017, you're in a lot of trouble, because this isn't a time to pull back. This is the time to double down, to go, what am I going to do? Do I still have that fire that I had when I started in this business? Because if you don't, somebody else does. And if you don't, you need to re-engage and go, what are the things that are missing in my business? So this slide gives you a list of things that are drop dead you should be doing, and I'll go over them quickly. But the bottom ones are things, hey, you might want to consider adding one of those things. Like, for example, one big issue is that financing has never been better for people in the automotive business, in the auto repair business. So used to, we all had Car Care One, and that was really it. Well, now we have 3 and 4 different sources for customers to get financing. That becomes mission critical in an environment where people don't have a lot of money in the bank and they've maxed out their credit cards. Well, if you're not one working on that, and you'll have to look at your state to see what financing is available. Just go online. There's a lot of stuff out there. So financing is a big thing for us right now. We're really pushing that. But these top things are just obvious. Being a yes company, which means you should listen to your phone calls. You should make sure that your people at the front counter are not turning away any customers. 20 years ago, it didn't matter as much because people would still come back to you. Today, if you send somebody away because you're busy, they're probably not coming back. They're going to go somewhere else, and when they do, that new place is hemorrhaging cash. They're going to do everything they can to keep that customer. So when you have a manager or you yourself are telling somebody, hey, come back on Wednesday, what you're saying is I have enough business. That just can't happen. You have to find a way to say yes to that customer. And yes means now. Yes doesn't mean yes in 3 days. I just hope that people will look at that and I think I've done some stuff on Mudlick's website. You should look at that, get your team re-engaged with it. We've talked about marketing and advertising over the years, and you have people, I think most of the people on this webinar understand that, we're pretty straightforward. Anyone that knows me, we do direct mail every single month. We do online marketing every single month. And we've never pulled back on that. Mm-hmm. Anything else that I want to do outside of direct mail and my online campaign is called a donation. Mm-hmm. It really does not drive the needle for me. So some people, if they're in a little tiny community, might say, hey, I can try a couple of other things, but these are my go-to things. You should be looking at doing that every month. Keeping your shop properly staffed. I'm going through that with some clients right now. Mm-hmm. It's crazy to think that that in this day and age that people will run one technician or no technicians. We'll go into the staffing here in a minute, but you gotta be properly staffed, hiring technicians, offering customer conveniences, which we just talked about, which is really finding ways that separate you from your competitors. A lot of people out there, good shops, have had the benefit of not having a lot of competition. We have some shops like that. They're a lot easier to run than one with 4 or 5 shops around it. But eventually, competition will move in. A national chain will buy out the guy who's down the street that wasn't very good. So you have to be thinking all the time, how can I improve my business?
You know, one of the questions I get all the time is, like, what should my marketing spend be per month? And like, so how much should I spend, and what should I spend it on? I get people asking me, how much do you spend for your online? And, how much should my budget be? Should it be 5%, 6%, 8%? Can you talk a little bit about how you kind of frame how much someone should spend and on what?
Well, what I do, and I know you share this with people, but I do full market potential, which I want to look around my market and say, what is my full potential, the customers that I feel like are customers, which generally for my shops are 2 miles from my store. Mm-hmm. I want to dominate that 2-mile area. So if I can dominate in 2 miles, and I'll mail to those customers every single month. My online, I get a good return online, I just don't get enough of it. So we do online. I don't mind sharing. I use Kukui, and that's a company that I do own part of. Mm-hmm. But there's other companies out there that do the online. If you're using somebody, the key is making sure that you're getting a return on your investment. So on our stores, we probably spend about $500 a month in pay-per-click, AdWords, SEO, mm-hmm. and which on a number of stores it adds up. And we get a decent return. But I can't take an area around the store and go, okay, I can spend $3,000 a month. There's not enough demand for that in a 2-mile area around my store. From an online perspective. And that's really what I'm trying to accomplish. And I would tell everybody, don't try to dominate unless you're out in rural Nebraska. If you're in a city, don't worry about trying to dominate 5 miles away. Dominate your 2 miles. The people in the 2 mile will give recommendations to the people in the 3 and 4 mile. Right. Just dominate that. It won't be so expensive. You want to hit your full market, and then check it off your list.
Do you shoot for percentages, or for you is it just 300 to 500 a store, full market potential, whatever that is, or is there 5%, 8%, 10%?
No, people get the problem with the percentages is, what percentage do I use? Do I use the percentage of sales that I'm at today, or do I use the percentage of sales that I want to be at? Mm-hmm. And to me, all I look at is, hey, what is my full market potential? The sales will take care of itself. If I hit the people that I'm looking for, it'll take care of itself.
All right, so let's talk about one thing that comes up a lot is resetting your business. Talk about talent and how important is talent, how you reset requirements, for your positions at your stores.
Okay, I hope that everyone will write this down, because the single most question I get asked is what?
How do you hire a good technician?
And the answer I give every single time is hire them in the 4th quarter. This is hiring season, and this is firing season. I don't know anybody that's ever worked for me. They know this is the off season. This is when we make adjustments. But if you're sitting, and what happens with shop owners is that sales slow down. If October's a slow month, they go, oh, well, I don't need a technician right now. The thing is, if you're slow in October, guess what? So is your competition. This is your time to get technicians. You want to overstaff techs and do everything you can to keep them. It's impossible when you're in June and July to come up to me and go, how do I hire technicians? As if there's a magic wand in June and July. Well, you've got nothing to offer them. They're already as busy as they can be. Why would they leave where they're at to come to work for you? But in October, November, December, January, February, these are prime months to hire technicians. The sooner you hire them, if you can hire techs in October and keep them through the winter, guess what? They're going to stay with you. The later you get into the season and you wait, if you wait till February to hire a technician, he may not be comfortable with you, and he may quit to go somewhere else in March. So right now is the time to hire. It's very easy. You're going to get a lot of resumes. Typically every 4 years, the month of October is a slow month. October is one of the best months out there, but just before an election, it's always a slow month. Every 4 years, go back and look at it. So what that tells you is this is the time. If you know that, we're hiring. In fact, we don't even have an opening for a technician, and we're looking for technicians. this is the time. So I hope you guys walk away with that. It's also a good time to reset, recalibrate what you've done with your managers. If you're not happy with the job of your management team, this is a good time to say, you know what, I need to reevaluate my bonus plan. I need to reevaluate my expectations for my managers, and I need to reevaluate their hiring or their position criteria, what they're required to do. You can always change it. You know, I think a lot of owners don't realize just because you say something doesn't mean it stays that way forever. You have to make adjustments.
Well, and a big part, I know that you push about growth and about being one of those companies that survives in the future. This is a big part of it. You really got to be, you know, I think I've heard you spend several webinars where you talk about 60% of your time should be spent with your people.
Yeah.
Why don't you talk a couple minutes about that?
Well, so when I say 60% of your time, the time to look for people is not when you're shorthanded. It's when you're fully staffed. It's kind of like a busy restaurant. People will go to a busy restaurant, they won't go to an empty one. Technicians will want to go to work for you if they see other technicians in the shop. But if they see no boxes, they go, you know what, why is there nobody here? It's the same deal with managers. You know, the best managers do not just come to work for you the first time you interview them. You got to interview them, you got to go through a process. So this is a great time for shop owners out there to go, who are the very best managers in the industry? I'm going to go after those people, and yeah, I may not be able to hire them in October, but I'm going to work them, I'm going to take them to lunch, I'm going to do whatever I can, and by January or February, I hope I land one of them. That's how you do it. The best people are employed, the best people don't need a job, and the best people won't accept a job if you offer it to them the first time you meet them. Very few people work out that do that. And if they'll accept a job from you the first time you meet them, chances are they'll accept a job from somebody else when they're working for you. So that, you know, this is a good time to go after solid people. Now, when I guess to step back 1 second, I would, before I start the recruiting process, I would make sure that I know what I want. So in other words, if I know what I'm looking for in a service writer or a store manager, whatever you want to call them, I will write those things down. We have criteria, hiring criteria, that you should take that criteria with you when you interview them. Whenever you write an ad for a manager or technician, you want to write an ad that fits that hiring criteria. So in other words, if you say, I will only hire ASE certified trained technicians L1 masters, well, then that's what you advertise. Don't just advertise hiring technicians, because you're going to get a bunch of, you know, people that aren't L1 masters. But some other people say, I don't care how many. All I care about is how good they are. Well, then you don't want to write only hiring L1 masters. With managers, when you write an ad for manager, the more information you can give them in an ad, the better chance you are of interviewing and hiring the person you're looking for. So in other words, something in our that we look for is we won't hire somebody that's had more than 2 jobs in 5 years. That makes it real easy to go through the resumes and go, yep, here's a bunch of 3s, 4s, and 5s. And the more people that we can get that's only had 1 job in 5 years, those are considered the cream of the crop. So other people don't care. So you have to know what you're looking for. This is the time to invest in people. And even once you hire them, you never stop recruiting and looking for people. You never stop upgrading.
Well, and guys, that's another, you know, that kind of leads us into the next part of it where, you know, now that you've looked at your people, you're spending your time getting the right type of people in, now you have to look at some of your vendors, how you're doing business. These are just some of the things, Greg, that I know over the years you've talked about, things that you should be top of mind as you move into the new year.
Well, and this kind of gets into the budgeting too, which we're going to talk about. But every year, our corporate office, we set a goal of, hey, what line items are we going to go after? So this year we went after uniform cost. It was absolutely amazing how much money. And now we've got several stores, but we saved over $30,000 in uniform cost. That's a lot of money. You know, on a monthly basis doesn't sound like much. The other thing that we went after is credit cards. You know, don't think that you got the best credit card fees. If you haven't looked at your credit card fees in a while, if you haven't shopped it in a couple of years, it's kind of like phone service. It gets cheaper. It is a commodity, and if you've stayed with the same company for several years for your credit card fees, chances are you're paying more than everybody else. What I love to find when you look at utilities, insurance, is how can I save money that doesn't impact my customers and I don't have to teach somebody to do it. So credit card fees, I save money and I don't have to teach anybody anything different. That's a home run. Uniforms, I save money and I don't have to teach anybody anything. So I look for those low-hanging fruit that are more general expenses. Obviously on gross profit, that's a deal you have to manage every day. But these are items that fall below gross profit that if you can just shave a little bit of money here or there, it makes you more competitive. And it can be the difference between a small business owner, you know, making money or breaking even or losing money.
Well, and I tell you, I think it's just important, guys. If you have questions, you know, we are going to answer them towards the end. I've got everybody in a listen-only mode. Just got a couple more slides here. Let's keep trucking along. Resetting your business, sales process. I know now that you got the right people and you've worried about your costs. Having a defined process is really important. It makes it easier to train, follow up on, and correct and make changes. Talk a little bit about how important this part of it is.
Well, okay, so if you're short-staffed or you're not hiring or you're not being able to get the best technicians, this part of the business is the difference. You know, if you hire a technician and then you go about your business, you know, meaning you're not really focused on your business, that tech's probably not going to stay there. But if you build processes in place, not only will you make more money, but you will also keep and retain your employees. So these are items that I put together that really help you make the most amount of money. And these are things that we spend a lot of time on. Phone skills is one of them. You don't have to do phone skills exactly the way I do it, although I would highly recommend it. I know at Mudlick Mail, if somebody contacts you guys, you'll give them a copy of our phone skills. You can, you know, you can use that as a training if you want your own phone skills. But phone skills should really involve making sure that we're showing a sense of urgency to our customers and that we're getting their name and phone number and type of car and getting them on a schedule. And the schedule is now. But if they don't want to come now, when do they want to come in? Having a process for phone skills, so many folks in the industry don't realize that if you don't have a process for phone skills, all you got to do is have a shopper listen to your calls and you'll be disgusted. It happens to us and we have phone skills. If we don't constantly focus on phone skills, our phone skills go down quickly. Just remember, people in the industry have been trained by everybody. If you hire somebody, chances are they worked for a Firestone, Goodyear, Meineke, you know, Joe Bob's Automotive, and so they've had all these different ways of being trained that may not necessarily want to be the way that you think that they're answering the phone or the way you want them to answer the phone. So building a process on these areas will make you a lot of money. Speed of service, we know from experience, if somebody comes in with an oil change, just an example, it could be a state inspection, flat tire, we know, and again, you can get this from Tim, we know from experience that if you can get back to the customer within 10 minutes, chances are you're going to get an upsell. The chances are above 50% you're going to get an upsell, even on an oil change. If you are slow moving, if you don't move that car right around, if it's sitting still, guess what? You're going to get an oil change and you're going to say it was a bottom feeder. The truth is it wasn't a bottom feeder, it was a slow moving manager. You know, the faster you move in this business is the better chance you have of making money. So speed sells and it will continue to sell. In fact, a study that came out just a couple of months ago, speed, convenience was ahead of quality, which is crazy, but that just shows you how overworked people are. They're busy, they don't have time. When they leave, they're thinking it's an annoyance to get something like an oil change. So if you can show a sense of urgency from the time they show up, open the door for them, you're pulling the car around while they're filling out paperwork, and you're trying to see how fast I can get back to the customer, there's a high probability that they will buy something. If you don't, there is a really high probability you won't. The PMI process, I think most people on here, you can get a copy of that. You can request it. But we go through a PMI process. Everybody here has their idea. We don't usually see a problem there. We see that it's too slow. You know, the customer callbacks, this is a big deal. You know, the reason why I got into this business back in '93 was that I loved the idea that our industry, we know who our customers are. We know when they come in. We know what kind of car they have. We know a lot about them. You can't know all that if you just own a Subway. You know, you just stuck to whoever comes in the door. So if I were you, I would put together a simple callback. I know a lot of people have heard this, but what we do is we update people on their oil changes both by direct mail. We do some online, and we also call them. And the calls are really just trying to set up appointments for our busy days like Saturday or the next day. So we call the customer and just say, hey, you know, Miss Johnson, we just want to remind you your oil change is due. Because sometimes they may not see the reminder in the mail. They might not get the email. You know, email's becoming less and less effective as everybody's been drilled by emails. I know that I miss a lot of them if it's from a company. So having a callback process is still one of the best ways to get customers back. And then, you know, obviously management follow-up, you know, making sure that we're following up with the process with the management team and making sure that it's a process that you want.
There's a couple of questions that came in, and I'm answering those before. The presentation will be available, be posted on our Learning Center here in a little bit later this week. The phone skills is also located on there. The information, and Greg's actually his store that he uses for are also posted on there. So we can definitely help you guys out with that. Let's keep trucking along here. Budgeting and goal setting, Greg, you talked a little bit about how important it was to you got to kind of know where you're at before so you can figure out where you're going. Why don't you talk about the importance of this?
I think in the 9 years that you and I've done this together, I have begged people to take this part. If anything, if you just walk away with anything else, you know, the difference between having one store that's struggling or, you know, a store doing really well or a chain of stores is right here. If you could, and I would just beg you guys on the phone again this year, you know, take the time to write a budget. You know, what I do is if you look at your P&L, and again, you can get a copy of this from Tim. If you look, what I do is I take our P&L and we project what we think our sales are going to be for the next year. Now, if you're trending down 5%, you can't magically say, I'm going to be up 20% in January. And that's what people do. They think a new year that magically, come January, I'm going to start a diet, I'm going to start running every day, and I'm going to be up 20% in sales. And then when that doesn't happen, they go, oh, well, crap, I'm, you know, back to their old ways, right? And what we do is we write budgets. And the budget is really our sales all the way down to profitability. You should be able to write budgets and know about what you're going to make next year. Now, if you're going to look at sales being up, you know, 5%, 10, 20%, there has to be a reason behind it. You can't say, well, I'm just going to be more focused. That's not going to cut it. If you're going to make a change, you have to, it's got to be things like we're going to hire a technician, or we're going to up our marketing, we're going to be better on phone skills. There has to be reasons for your sales to be higher. So if you're trending the last 90 days down 5% from the year before, chances are in January, you're going to be down 5%. You know, you're probably not going to be up 20% no matter what you do. Mm-hmm. But you can reverse the trend to say, hey, I'm down 5% in, you know, October, November. I'm going to try to get to break even to last year in January. That's realistic. If you beat it, great. But if you write a budget for that, chances are you got a chance of really hitting it. And you can look at, this is probably where you're going to end up. So if you look at the bottom line and go, wow, if I if I only do this much sales, I'm not going to make any money. Well, that's going to motivate you to work a lot harder. If you don't live by a budget, you'll also spend money that you don't have.
Mm-hmm.
So we write budget. You know this because you're part of the group. You have to write a budget. You have to turn it into me.
Yep.
We track. How often do we track the budget?
We track we track it on almost a weekly basis, but monthly, every month we track where we're at and where we're going.
Do we ever give up?
Not one time.
So, and our budgets usually end up about where we started. There are times where something will happen. Like if there's a blizzard in January and it threw our sales off, we'll readjust our budget. The key is don't give up on it. Make sure you write a budget. It's realistic. It's attainable, and it's all the way down to what is my net profit going to be for next year? And then what are the things, a lot of mistakes that people make, if you are spending $500 a month on repairs and maintenance of your shop, don't put 0 next year because you're going to spend $500 more than likely. Or if you know you have a repair you have to do, like your garage door is going to need replaced, or I need to get, then you need a budget for that. These are just, it's easy to live in denial and say, I'm just going to write this beautiful budget. It's going to show I'm making $300,000 next year. And really you didn't budget in anything. It was going to be, you would have to run a perfect P&L. That's not budgeting. Your budgeting should be, if I bet you $1,000 that, you know, that you could get within $500 of what you actually print, you know, from your budget, that's the way you want to look at it is, hey, how close can I get to being right on my budget? Not just write something that makes you feel good. So we go through this process. Some of this we've already covered. You know, evaluate what you're going to do differently. We just talked about that. You know, follow the trends, which is what I was just saying. You know, go look at where you're trending. If you're trending down, how are you going to turn it around? One of the things that I look at when I budget is car count. You know, if I see that I'm trending down in car count, that's probably my biggest concern. If I'm up in cars and down in sales, that doesn't alarm me. It just means I have to do a better job. Maybe I don't have as good a technician. But when my car count's down, that means I'm losing market share. That is a scary, scary thing. What really scares me is if I'm up in sales and down in car count. That means my management team is charging my existing customers more money than they did last year. They're trying to make up the difference with the customers that I have left. Mm-hmm. That could mean I'm down in car count even more in 6 months. So when I look at budgeting, I look at sales, but also look at your car counts. Ask yourself the question, how am I going to get more cars? What am I not doing right? You'll find it. Chances are if your car count's down, you drill down into phone calls, listen to calls. You know, everything that I advertise has a tracking number. So Mudlick Mail tracks it for me. So if I do a direct mail hit, not only do I know how many people came in on that direct mail piece, all of those calls are recorded, and we use those as training pieces for us to let managers hear themselves. Mm-hmm. A lot of times with small business owners, the owner is the worst person on the phone. You know, and that's a tough deal when you're talking to a guy and, you know, you listen to his calls and he's the jerk on the phone turning away customers. So we just got to make sure that we're all on the same page. If you have trending car count down, listen to your phone skills. Make sure you're marketing, but don't just market without listening to calls. If you're not going to listen to calls, don't market. Just save yourself the trouble. Well, and the last thing is write it down, measure, and achieve it, which we always do. You have the budgets. You make sure that you keep them. You share it with your management team, you know, and you're talking about this throughout the year. You're not just doing it and then putting it away in a file somewhere. This is probably, if I was talking to somebody out of college that was starting a business, I mean, this would be, you got to know your numbers. Mm-hmm. If you don't know your numbers, if you're not tracking it, you're going to be very limited in your success. A lot of business owners will say, well, I'm not very good with numbers, or I don't do that. All they're saying is, you know what, I'm never going to make money. You have to be good at numbers. You have to want to know where you're at. And actually running a company is very easy if you know your numbers. I could probably bring any of these couple hundred shop owners that's on here right now. I could probably pull any of them and they could run my company, because they have access to accurate information. Mm-hmm. And if I asked any of them on here, any of you guys, and how would I improve my parts markup? My parts markup's not where it needs to be. Anybody can answer that question. The problem is not knowing what your parts markup is, or not knowing what your effective labor rate is, or not knowing how much you're spending on marketing, or not knowing how much you're spending in shop supplies or uniforms, things like that. Mm-hmm. If you know where you're at, it's easy to fix. This deal is not that hard. Shop owners make it hard by not wanting to know their numbers.
Well, I think the big thing you've taught me, and I hear you talk about it all over the country, is just that whole accountability thing. When you write a budget, you've got goals. They're financial goals, or marketing goals, or staffing goals, but you hold yourself accountable. You don't let yourself out, and you focus. And if you have a tough month, you get back on the horse and you get back at it. And that'll take us, because we're almost done, and there's some questions that we've gotten, guys. Hang in there with me. I'm going to get to them at the very end. If you have some questions, type those in, and I will absolutely get to them. The last thing I want to kind of end on is advertising and marketing, because you talk a lot about it. You've got to grow your business. This isn't about direct mail. This is about making sure you market and advertise your business so that you can reach your goals. Because there's a lot of times we talk to people and they have these goals, but they don't really have a plan on how they're going to get there. And so advertising and marketing is that critical component. So what kind of advice would you give folks?
Well, there's so much advice out there, and it's bad advice, to be honest with you. You see, and I would just ask anybody here, you see a lot of people out there pushing social media, and social media is great, except I want to meet the person getting all the customers off social media. We're doing it. I mean, we do it.
Yeah.
It's a whole lot of nothing. It's a whole lot of work. I'm just being real honest. Mm-hmm. There's so many ways to waste money. I just don't do it. I've done all this stuff. I mean, I'm doing social media, but I'm not seeing the effects of it. I see the same 3 likes and, a lot of energy put on that.
Right.
It may be the answer someday, but it's not the answer today. Mm-hmm. Radio and TV, we know that's just not a good option at all. I don't think that's worth talking about. Where does a shop owner go? Do you go into a magazine? Well, you know what? I mean, we've tested every magazine. We have tried it. It's just the immediacy. We don't see the phone ringing. So you're just limited to what you can do. You could save yourself a lot of trouble by deciding what am I going to do? For Greg Sands, I do direct marketing, direct mail, and I do online marketing. And then I don't jack with it for the whole year. Anybody knows me and know me for years, that's what I do. And it's not that hard. I don't want to spend time talking about advertising, marketing, and all that. I want to set my budget. I set what I'm going to do, and then I focus all my attention on making sure people are answering the phone when the phone rings, because it will ring. Mm-hmm. And I make sure that we're staffed, and I make sure that we're working on training. There's a lot of managers that or owners that suddenly think they're a marketing expert. It's laughable. Oh yeah, I'm suddenly this guru, Well, and they spend all their time looking for ways to waste money, but they won't spend time teaching and training their team. They won't spend time hiring. They won't write a budget. They want to live in a fantasy world that, maybe I'll make a funny commercial, or maybe I'll walk around the camera on Facebook. It's laughable. That's not how you make money. This is a grown-up business. This is where you go, you know what, I'm going to go into 2017, and I'm going to set a budget. I would love for everybody to use Mudlick Mail. I'm an investor in Mudlick Mail, and I'd love for that. But if somebody said, well, I don't trust Mudlick, well, then go do direct mail somewhere. But don't waste it on, if you want to sponsor Little League Baseball, well, go sponsor. But that isn't your marketing. That's a donation. If you want to spend, you say all your money in the future is online, we'll try it. I bet some people on here have tried that this year, and guess what it got them? Low car count. Mm-hmm. You have to be smart enough to say, hey, this did not work. That's what drives me crazy. Just because you want it to work doesn't mean it works. Which goes back into that whole track and measure. If you're doing direct mail, if you're doing pay-per-clicks, if you're doing a magazine, whatever you're doing, track it, measure it,
find out if you're getting the results. Every marketing tactic should stand on its own and create a revenue stream for you, correct?
Correct. If it doesn't have a return, it shouldn't be done.
And I think that'll help people decide how much do I allocate money, time, but then writing in that budget we just talked about, set your calendar for the year and focus on the more important things.
Well, I think the challenging thing for shop owners is this. Okay, I can't afford to market. So because I can't afford to market, my sales don't go up, then I can't hire technicians. Somewhere something has to break. If you can't afford to market, then you better work the phones. You better do callbacks and set up appointments, and you work your customer base. If you're just going to send people an email and think that works, well, good luck. I know it doesn't work because we do it. And we know how, meaning it doesn't work. Will you get 2 or 3 customers that come in on an email blast? Sure. Is it going to take you from being, doing $70,000 a month in sales to 100? Absolutely not. That's just a slow, miserable death. If you want to move the needle with your customer base, you have to do the old-fashioned pick up the phone and call them. Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of work. I'd recommend if you have 2 people at your front counter, then that one person is managing the front counter and helping out when it gets busy, and the rest of the time they are on the phone. And their goal is to set appointments. Not just oil change reminders, but one of the things that we do that, if you have let's say you have a warranty that's 2 years, 24,000 miles. The first 6 months it's for it's 100%. It's a prorated warranty. We call those customers. Now in our case, it's a year. So at the end of the year, we'll call a customer and remind them, hey, you're about to get out of the full warranty on the repairs we did. We'd love for you to come by and let us just inspect the work that we've done. That's a great service for customers. 9 times out of 10, if they need something else, when they come in, they'll go, hey man, it builds credibility. Hey, could you check this, this, and this while it's here? Mm-hmm. So go back to people, if you got a 1-year warranty that's about to expire in their 1-year warranty, go back to all the jobs you sold a year ago. If it's a 2-year warranty, go back 2 years ago and call every customer you did repairs with. That's a tip of the day. If you do that and just say, hey, it's a service that we do, it doesn't cost you anything, we're just going to check the repairs that we did. If there's any issue whatsoever, we'll take care of it. Nobody does that. Mm-hmm. See, that's a thing that you can do rather than have your manager stand around. Find creative ways. Is there an owner special? What's your year that you started business? This is our 23rd year in business. We're going to do a $23.99 oil change and inspection, or free wiper blades, whatever you want to do. But if you're not working the phones and being creative, mm-hmm. well, shame on you. Well, somebody else is going to work the phones at a different shop.
Well, and one of the questions I think you answered is who's the best person to do customer callbacks. That's where you assign your managers, right? And for a lot of you guys, you see on the screen, there's automotive.mudleymail.com. There's a learning center in there. We have Greg's callback scripts for what he uses, whether it be Customer Appreciation Day, missed some sort of a warranty call. There's a lot of great reasons to generate opportunities for you that don't cost you anything but the labor that you're already paying.
Yes.
Some of the other questions, Greg, and so now's the time, guys, for you guys if you have some questions. We covered a lot of material. As I mentioned, this presentation will be loaded into our Learning Center. You'll be able to watch it, listen to it here in the future, but this is a good opportunity to grab Greg real quick on some questions. You guys can email or you can actually type those in. One of the questions, I know you get this a lot, Greg, and I think you covered some of it, but again, best source to find technicians are getting harder to come by. We have an aging population of master techs.
Yeah. Well, the best way to hire great technicians, if you want to find some really good ones, is look for service managers. The service managers out there are usually the best technicians. So if you run an ad for service managers and when you're interviewing them, look for the guys that were ASE certified technicians. That's where all the good technicians are. So I hate to share that, but because I love, if I run an ad for service managers, I'm going to get the best technicians. Those are the guys that I'm going to convert from service manager to say, hey, how would you like to turn wrenches again? Of course, nobody wants to, right? But if you give them an incentive to do it, it may be, hey, I'll give you a time loan. I don't do sign-on bonuses, but I'll do a time loan to say, hey, I will give you $2,000 over the next 6 months. for a time loan. So every month that you're with me, turning wrenches as a technician, I'll deduct $4,000 off of that or whatever it is. So at the end of 6 months, the guy doesn't owe me the $2,000. He's been there for 6 months as a technician. Those are your best technicians, and nobody's recruiting those guys because they don't know that they're actually service managers today. They're making less money as a service manager than they did as a technician.
Yeah, and I tell you, that information, guys, on the time loan is also on the website. But again, I think the focus on hiring technicians in the fourth quarter, not waiting until you're so busy, is the easiest way to go for a lot of you guys. And there's some sample ads on our website as well to check that out. One of the questions came about emails. How often should you email? One of the things I will tell you, and hopefully you guys are doing it at Greg's stores, is that they try to capture as many emails as possible.
Yeah.
Certainly, I think you actually stack rank your guys on how many they collect. That's important for you. How often then should you email them?
Just once a month.
Once a month.
So we have found we've tried to do it more, but you'll get your best return. So what we do is we do our direct mail. We take let's say we're doing 10,000 pieces. We divide that by 3. We hit that the first, second, and third week. The fourth week we do an email blast. And we do it the same every. It's pretty simple.
Well, it's a very inexpensive way to use it. So what I would encourage you guys to do is, if you're not taking email addresses at your store, you need to start immediately. And there's some great ways to do that. There's some information on our Learning Center that talks about how to acquire that. So we're getting a little bit past due, guys. We have just a couple more minutes in case somebody wanted to email or send us a little questions you might have. But we really want to take this opportunity to thank you guys for coming on board. What I would encourage you guys to do is to go to our website at automotive.mudlickmail.com. You can get some great information. Greg, any parting thoughts here before we end this webinar?
I would just reiterate the fact that please write a budget for 2017. I would not get distracted with the election. I would vote and move on. We all have one vote, but the guys that are running around worried about who's going to be the next president while their company is burning and they're worried about taxes and all that, that is just a distraction. Vote for whoever you want to vote, but let's get focused on 2017. Let's set our budget. It doesn't matter who the president is. Let's vote. You're still going to have your shop, so it's not going to make you write your budget differently. So don't worry about all the distraction, all the noise. Get focused on your business. Make 2017 the year you fall back in love with your business again. If you fall back in love with it, you get involved with it, you make it, just like when you first opened your shop or took it over. Get re-engaged. Make it fun. If you do, no surprise, your sales will go up. If you do it now, your sales will go up in November and December. Give it a try. It beats stressing about sales.
Well, and we appreciate you coming on board, Greg. It's always great to have you. Guys, some of the takeaways are just get engaged, get excited, hold yourself accountable, and take advantage of the great opportunity out there, because would you agree, Greg, it's still a great business to be in?
I would say there's never been a better time, because our competitors, the people out there, a lot of them are broke. They're easy to compete against. Mm-hmm. I hate to say that, but 20 years ago, everybody was making money. It was a lot more difficult. Today, if you compete, and when everybody's doing social media, everybody takes a right turn, take a left, do something different. Mm-hmm. Don't be the guy who's following people that don't know what they're doing off a cliff. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of talking heads out there right now in our industry that are experts. But ask them, if you're going to listen to somebody, hey, show me what your sales look like. Let me see how many shops do you have? You ever owned a shop? Be careful. Most of everybody on here that owns a shop can do this. They don't need somebody to hold their hand. Some of the best shops in the country are on this call right now. I know the names. Mm-hmm. And isn't it funny, there's some major shop owners on this call. Why are they on this call? But yeah, there's people doing $400,000 a year. They never do any training. They don't listen to anything, but except for people that they take advice from people that are in the same boat as they are. You will never be successful if you're listening to some other broke shop owner. Mm-hmm. You got to go, what, maybe I should change my game a little bit. So it gets me fired up. I'm fired up about the rest of this year, 2017. Look forward to seeing a lot of you guys out there at different functions. Mm-hmm. And I love coming on here. It's my favorite webinar of the whole year.
Well, thanks so much for coming. Guys, thanks again for being part of this great webinar. Again, go onto our website at automotive.mudlickmail.com. There's a lot of great information on there. If you're assigned to a sales rep, give them a call. They'd be happy to walk you through the Learning Center, share any of this information with you. Have a great rest of the week, and thanks so much. Have a good day. Bye-bye.